In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, one God.
Amen.
Brothers and sisters in Christ, we have come to the midpoint of Great Lent. As I've been sharing with you during this season, what we engage in during Great Lent is preparation for Holy Week, which of course ends on Great and Holy Friday at the foot of the cross, and of course the celebration of Christ's resurrection at Pascha. This is all preparatory in that direction. And what the church does with this particular Sunday, so of course we have 5 Sundays in Lent, this is the third Sunday, is we have this commemoration of the cross. So an element of that is signaling. We've had 2 Sundays of Great Lent already, 3 weeks if you want to count the weeks. And looking ahead, we have 2 Sundays left, 3 weeks on the other side. So there are a couple of ways that you can approach this, depending upon where you are in your Lenten journey. If you have been doing the work of Great Lent and partaking of all of those disciplines that we do during Great Lent, the fasting, the prayer, the almsgiving, the preparation and coming to do your confession, and you've been kind of cranking through that, this is an affirmation, and it says you're halfway there. You've done half the work, keep at it, and you'll get the other half done, no problem. Well, if you may have landed in the other camp where you still have the sense of, well, Great Lent has started, I'm working my way into these sorts of things. Now, it's a reminder. It's half over. So if you haven't really done much of your Great Lent yet, time to start picking up the speed there. So if there are things that you've intended to do and haven't done that are Lenten, just go ahead and get to work on that. So this is the one element that we have here of this commemoration, right in the middle of Great Lent. It's the reminder. We're halfway on the journey. And before we know it, we will get to Holy Week and all of the celebrations we have then, and then, of course, Pascha. Well, a paramount feature of this commemoration today is, and we'll have this at the end of liturgy, we'll have the procession with the cross, where, the cross will come up to the altar, I'll cense it, the tetrapod will be put here, we'll process around the church, I'll go around the table, and we'll sing the hymns of the cross, for the cross. And at the end of liturgy, when you come up to venerate the cross, that's the cross you're venerating, not the hand cross that I typically hold. And so we have that as the big reminder there. Something that we act out as Orthodox Christians. Sometimes I explain to people who are not Orthodox, a lot of what we do, in a sense, and I don't want this to sound crass or indifferent, but we don't just talk about our faith, but we do our faith. And so in a sense, we act things out. So in a way, a lot of what happens in this space is drama, for the lack of a better word. So we have that procession, and we bring it in the forefront. But we don't stop there. On this Sunday, we also have this reading from the Gospel of Mark. And this occurs in the other Gospels as well. Jesus Christ saying, if you would come after me, if you would be one of my followers, you will deny yourself, pick up your cross, follow me. And so that's a really sharp statement of what's required of us as Christians and followers of Christ. This reading does remind me of someone that I met. So, as the practice in our archdiocese, every summer we have this big gathering. It's a get-together, people from all these different parishes, the Parish Life Conference. And about 7 years ago, it was up in Dearborn, Michigan. And I went and I attended that. And while there, of course, one of the big events is Thursday night is always the Bible Bowl, which is, this kind of this quiz show where you have teams from different parishes. They come and compete, and they answer trivia questions about a particular book of the Bible. And so that evening, as we were preparing for the Bible Bowl, this man came up to me. And that's the interesting thing too, is you come to these events and you just meet people. This man was a member of the host parish, which was the Basilica of St. Mary in Livonia. And he was in his 80s, and we got in this conversation. He was just curious. He's like, "Oh, you're a priest. I don't know who you are. Who are you? I haven't met you before." And we started talking. And somehow he led the conversation to this verse. And he said, most of my life I grew up in a Protestant church, one of the mainline Protestant denominations. You'd recognize, the brand name if you want that. If you went out and I told you which one it was. He said, I grew up in one of those churches, and it finally got to the point where I didn't feel like in that church I was denying myself, picked up my cross, and was following Jesus. And so I looked around, and I found my local Orthodox church, and I joined. And it was based on this scripture reading, that he made that decision. He wasn't one of these people that, it's kind of a cliche at this point. That, the person who got dissatisfied with what they believed, they started looking around. They started reading the books, kind of showing the decades of how things. First, it was the books, then it was the blogs. Now it's the podcasts and the videos. And get satiated on all of this stuff about the Orthodox Church before coming through the door of a church. He wasn't one of those. He didn't have his PhD in Orthodox convert studies. He was just a guy. And the interesting thing about the parish that he joined, the Basilica of St. Mary, you're talking Detroit, Dearborn, Michigan, one of the largest Arab American communities in the United States. Most of the parishioners at that parish were Palestinians. And he wasn't like, this is weird, they're Palestinians, I'm not. He was white Anglo-Saxon Protestant guy. But he said, here, Jesus Christ is here. I deny myself, I pick up my cross, and I follow him here. And what's more important is he said, this wasn't some convert decision where I came and, I'm good and I'm done. He said, every morning I wake up. He's in his 80s. And I ask myself the question, today do I deny myself, pick up my cross, and follow Jesus Christ? He looked very seriously at me and said, if you are truly a Christian, if you truly follow these words, you have to ask that question every morning. So that witness has stuck with me. And it kind of points to, as I said, we do this procession, we have the drama, we expect it and we see it, but we don't leave it there. And his story actually highlights a number of pitfalls that we can have in our walk as Christians. Sometimes we can be Christians because of the ethnic aspect, where it is, I go to this church because there is a word of ethnicity on the sign. I am part of that ethnic group, and I get to be with, quote unquote, my people. Well, there's also this stuff about Jesus Christ. That's not entirely the case in parishes like that. It really does depend, parish by parish. But there are people who their sole reason for going to church is just to be around people like them, ethnically speaking. And the element of faith can be very minimal. Footnote, we have the word Antiochian on the sign. That refers to the Patriarchate of Antioch. It's not an ethnicity. Even before we had all these converts come in, our Patriarchate has always been multi-ethnic. There's a preponderance of folks from the Middle East, but there's diversity in that. We can gloss and say they're all Arabs, they're all Middle Eastern, and miss the diversity. And of course, we don't come here because we're something called Antiochian, ethnically speaking. So that's one instance, the ethnic piece. This next piece tends to be an older form, and actually something very prevalent within like older people from Protestant churches, like the man in my story. He grew up in this particular denomination. His whole family grew up in this denomination. And it can become this cultural thing, a brand loyalty. Well, my family are all X. Fill in the blank. Lutherans, Presbyterians, Episcopalians, what have you. And we always go to, fill in the blank, a Lutheran church, Presbyterian church, Episcopal church. That's just what we do. And that can be a pitfall. Do we just go because it's something the family has always done? We tend to see less of that now. Over the last 30, 40 years, people have kind of gotten more into this thing about shopping around. And they just look for things from that standpoint. There's not so much a brand loyalty. But the element of brand is still critical when we talk about our children and our teens. So by and large, our children and teens are here because the parents bring them. And this is kind of more a message directed at the teens. At some point, you have to make a decision. Are you here because of your faith in Jesus Christ, or are you here because your parents bring you here? I would hope you would see and say, I find Jesus Christ most authentically and directly in an Orthodox church, and that's why I'm here. And it becomes your church, not the church your parents bring you to. But if it is just brand, you're missing something there. And that's why our church always has things like Sunday school and camp and teen groups and things like that. There are opportunities and places for you to appropriate this faith as your own. So you can see this kind of thought process really is getting to the question, why are you here? Why do you make the decision? And of course I can say this because, looking out at who's here, by and large, you are the ones every single Sunday you make a decision to get up out of bed and come here for liturgy. Most, if not all Sundays, I see these families that I see here now. Is it because I have great, concise sermons? They're not always concise. Is it about coffee hour? Is it about you like to come and light a candle, and that's the high point? Or is it about Jesus Christ? So part of the question is, how, in making that choice, am I denying those sorts of things? It's not bad to like certain aspects of coming to church, but is the primary reason about Jesus Christ? And if not, how can I make that so? And that's kind of the question there. Of course, I speak this, and of course, I talk about the drama, how we do things. And there is this aspect. There's a motto in my wife's family. If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. That usually refers to like birthday parties and celebrations and things like that. But that's really the hallmark of the Orthodox Church as well. A difficulty that I see in Western churches, and this is really probably the best way I see in doing the contrast, is a Western approach to Christianity tends to be very propositional. Do you believe this? Check mark. Do you believe this? Check mark. Do you believe this? Check mark. And often that's the criteria that people will use to join a church. Well, this church teaches A, B, and C. Therefore, I'm in agreement with that. And the picture in the Orthodox Church is, no, this is the family that has been doing this since Jesus Christ and the apostles. And a lot of it is overdone. I once shared with the children about my vestments and when I put my vestments on. There's 8 items that I wear. Every single one of them, if you look, there's a cross on it. Why do I need crosses on everything? If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. If I'm serving at the altar, every single item that I wear should have a cross on it. Because I'm at his altar, serving him. And that's why we have these sorts of things, processions. That's why later this week we'll have a big celebration of a feast that's Friday evening and Saturday morning. That's why during Holy Week there is stuff going on almost every night. And as we get more towards the end of the week, there's more stuff on individual days going on. We'll have 3 services on Friday of Holy Week. And they're all different because they all do different things. Because we say, let's take this piece and show it off. Let's take the next piece and show it off. Let's take the next piece. Holy Friday, where the cross is so prevalent, let's do as much drama with that as possible. Because on Saturday night, late when we get back here, we do I call it the Pascha service. It's actually 3 services. If you look in the book, I think one is it's something we just do at the door. It's called another service. So technically there's 4 services. But we just show up and do them all. And it's all about empty tomb, empty tomb, empty tomb. Christ is risen. And it's all this acting out of denying ourselves, picking up our cross, and following Jesus Christ. So we've reached the midpoint, folks. We're halfway through Great Lent. We're focused on the cross and what that means. And we're looking towards the finish line of this Great Lent and the bigger drama of Holy Week and Pascha. Glory to Jesus Christ.